It's a bit of a no-brainer that being out in the garden in the fresh air is healthy. We know that. The food you can produce is very special. And right, we've got a big garden here, but it's so simple to get started. This is a really good project to start with because you don't need much to make it all happen. All the tools we need are here. We're working in wood, so we need a saw. We're going to have to take some measurements. You can guesstimate, but actually tape measure and a pencil. We'll talk about those later. Screws. These are just simple stainless steel screws because it's going to be outside. And a drill driver. That's all you need. Tools are there. And I always think about tools and materials. Materials, we need some wood. I got some wood over here and I've got some compost. So wooden around the outside of my planter, compost in the middle of it. That's it done. It's as simple as that. Now, getting started. Right, decisions made. This is where we're going to have, well, that's big enough to do there. This is where we're going to have our planter. That's only the start of the decisions, really, because when it comes to how we're going to join these bits of wood together, if I look now at the end, it's a big difference if I put a piece there, like that, or I put a piece like that, from what it looks like from that direction. Now, because you're going to be walking up to the potting shed, I'm going to have my end pieces like this, so from that side it looks at its best. Pull shift dog, beep. Right, so now give me a feel for what we're going for here. It's about 160, 1600 mil. This is a bought length of wood, and if I put that bought length of wood there like that, I'm going to have an offcut when I cut it to length. And that offcut is going to be approximately 750. And because every time I cut a piece, I'm going to have a piece left over that's approximately 750, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to make it 750 wide. Because to have the bed that wide, that's a perfect size. There's an old saying, I'd rather be lucky than smart. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to cut that to the length we need, and the bit that's left over is going to determine the width of our bed, which means we get the most out of every individual piece. I want it to be, I think I'm going to go for 2 high. 2 high is going to be plenty for this. When you're making raised beds, if you make a raised bed that you want to have it for convenience to get into, if you're slightly older and you can't bend over, the higher you are, the easier it is to work in it. But for me, this is a planter. I'm using this piece of ground and I'm containing the area I'm growing in. When you have a planter with compost in it, it heats up nice and quickly with the sun. It also is something that you can control the nutrients in the soil very easily. And when I come out here to work on this, if I want to weed this, it'll take me minutes, which means it's not like thinking, oh, I've got the whole garden to do. It's a nice little bit at a time. So you can weed this planter, weed the next planter, and you're not sort of thinking, oh, what a massive job. There's the old saying, you eat an elephant a bite at a time. And so by spreading things around, your gardening becomes easier. By the way, the other thing about a plant you should always think about is you want to be able to reach to where your goodies are. If I'm going to grow something nice to eat, I don't want to be unable to get to it. So, and we're going to have access, yeah. I've made my decision by just looking at this. I'm going to get this marked up and cut. All the plan is in my head now. I suppose I should share it. That's probably a good idea. Now, I have 1600 millimeters, but my side piece isn't going to go from one end to the other. There's going to be a piece in front and a piece behind. So the length of my side piece is 1600 millimeters minus 2 times the width. This piece and this piece. So it's going to be 1600 millimeters minus 2 widths. Better work out what that is, hadn't I? Have a look at this. Did everybody notice the fact that the end of your tape measure is wobbly? It goes in and out. What is that about? It's very clever. So any decent quality tape measure has got a little wiggly bit at the end. That means when you are measuring your wood, if you're going on the outside like this, put it there, hold it, and it says 26 millimeters. but I may not be able to hook over the end. Imagine if I had a piece of wood here and I still want to know the width of it. By having the little wiggly bit at the end, when I push against it here like this, boom, and I read it, do you know what it says? 26. It's absorbed the thickness of the little hook. So they are 26, 26. It's a marvel. That's why you've got a wobbly bit on the end of your tape measure. And I've actually used it to discover it's 26 millimeters. So I have to take off 2 times 26 millimeters, and that's 52 millimeters. And 52 millimeters, because it's a planter, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to call it 50. As my dad used to say, as near as damn it. Okay, so this bit now is now going to become 1550 millimeters. I'm going to cut 1550 millimeters and see what I've got left, and that's going to help me shape it all up. What I'm going to do, here we go, piece of wood. I need to measure it and mark it at 1550. There's a very, very good adage, and that is measure twice, cut once. And that's because it's a pain in the bobo and expensive to get it wrong. All right. Now, what we're going to do here, 1550, which is here. All right, puppy dog, you're going to come and fix it for me. Have a look and see what I'm going to do here. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to mark my point. And instead of just putting a little mark beside it, I'm going to put a little V. And the little V is done on purpose because I can starting out, and it gives me a more accurate measurement. Here we go. So 1550. What I do with my sharp pencil, I start where it says that the 1550 one way, go back and start and go the other way, and that gives me a lovely little V to draw through. Come down again and do it. So little V, start with the 1550, start with the 1550. 2 points will always make a straight line. Always do a third one, because the third one you can tell if one of them's wrong. Okay, so here we go, and one in the middle between those, even though it's not a big piece. It's good technique just to get your head around, yeah. Always mark it at least 3 times, 1550. What we do when we mark on our piece of wood, we do a little scribble on the side which is waste. And that means you'll always know which is the good bit. Because if I cut this nearly in the middle, nothing quite as embarrassing as cutting and throwing away the wrong bit, or chopping the wrong bit twice. So this is my waste side, so I just do a little scribble like that. So anywhere that I find a scribble, I know it's the dead bit. How many people have done some sewing and it's all wobbling all over the place? If you get it clamped, life is easier. Okay, that's now held. First time I saw jaws like this was on Scrap Heap Challenge back in 1998. It was a revelation. I loved it. Seems silly. This is really useful when you're sewing. I'll just put that out of the way. Okay, here we go. Sewing. To start cutting. If you start sewing, you can move around the place. I want to cut on that line exactly, and that's what I use. Have you seen how clever that is? I've got a spare one, but this is the one I like using. And what I'm going to do is put my finger over, making my knuckle. I use my knuckle to rest my saw on, and then when I draw back, it doesn't go up and down the piece of wood. Then what I have to do is make sure this stays upright. If you cant it over in either direction, you just get a bit of a wonk on it. Won't be the end of the world for a planter, because the way I look at it, if the plant can't write you a letter to complain, let's not worry. Okay, so here we go. You pull it up and you cut on the down. Now, when you come to this stage, there's a very good chance if you go, it'll snap the end off. Hence the reason for this little bad boy. Get the bad boy like that, yes. When we get to the end, that is supported. Look at that. Come around, and we haven't lost the corner. That's why I like having one of those handy. If you're working the tools and people are doing this full time, they'll always have a sharp saw. You know, sharp saws are quite important. There we go. And this is my first piece. And there's enough gap at each end for the piece of wood. We're done. Now, we've measured one. We want them all to be the same size, so I could measure them all at 1550, and if I needed the practice I could do that, or what I can do is choose one as my template one and use that to draw the line for every other one. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. Let's go there. Because you measure twice and you cut once, and lo and behold, it's a 1550 thing of beauty. Knuckle in place, guide it. Another one done. Made the decision that there's going to be a board at that end. These are those boards. This to here. So that's what it's going to be like that. So it's a bit of joining. It's time for screws. This is going to be the facing outside bit because it's uniform. I like uniform, okay? I'm going to mark this like this here and show you. Put this here. And we go there. And now I know where I want to put my screws. So I could just get a screw and put it in the middle, which is there, in the middle of the middle, and start screwing it in. I put my fingers underneath there to feel it coming through. If you're new to this game, don't screw it into your finger. The little things to think about. Now, what I want to do with each of these screws, I want it to be through about 3 or 4 mil. Okay, so 3 or 4 mils, all I wanted to come through. And the reason for that's going to be obvious in a moment. You can lie it flat, you can do lots of different ways. I actually like working up in the air rather than down on the ground. I think my knees are past that. There's one piece, there's another piece, like that. Set one piece against something. This is the one I'm working on. Up we go, and see those screws? I'm just using that little bit sticking through to hold the wood in place so it doesn't sort of slip off it. Now, I've held it in place, just lined it up to my satisfaction. And we're going to stick these screws in. When the screw has passed down so that only the thread is in the bottom one, there's nothing here that's actually forcing this down, so it pulls it in tight. That's why you have a ball bit at the end, so you can pull in this top piece of wood. So here we go, pop this one in, there's a little gap there. And you feel it sort of, you see it coming in and closing. That's because the bit at the top is pulling it in. Now, that's first 2 bits on, just 6 screws, okay? So what I'm gonna do, get my next piece of wood ready. Here we go, mark it off, both ends, make my life easy. One in the middle for diddle. Well done, hold on with that one. Even just with one with the bottom on, it's already quite rigid. Onto here. So, to be fair, we could do dovetail joints. We could do anything we wanted to with this, but keeping it simple. You have to, I always think, what's the purpose? And this isn't fine furniture, this is a planter. That's why it's such a great thing to start on. As long as it works, as long as it's robust, and you've made it, it's perfect. Wonderful. This is a good sized little planter. We're going to get quite a lot of veggies out of this, which is good. Right, dog. Now, it fits, good starting point. This is where my planter's going to go. If you're going straight onto bare earth, you don't have to do this, but what I've done here is I've got my weed suppressants with bark on it. And to be honest, I don't want to stop things growing, I want to encourage them to grow. It's my planter. So, now, shift dog, what are you doing? You're watching? Over we go. Going to go in here. I want to get rid of this weed suppressant, so to do that, we don't mess around. Oh look, worms, we like worms. There we go. Liking that. What I need to do now is get the next one on top. Here we go. Number 2. And you can see we could actually keep going up if we wanted to. I've got a couple of little dog ends of wood with these little leftover bits. If we use that, what I'm going to do is put a piece that way. See, pull it together. There we go. There's a lot of growing capability here. I'm quite excited by that. Now, what I need is to fill it with compost. You can get grow bags that are quite cheap and they look like good value because they're quite big. But that compost will only really be good for a year. You can fertilise and add to it. But what I'm interested in doing is this planter will be here for a long time. And we'll put good quality compost in it, and then we'll replace the compost with some of our own compost, with molehills that I collect with the children, anything, but we'll keep refreshing it. But starting off good quality is important, and for that I have good quality compost. And all of a sudden, when I look at the size of my planter, I realise I need quite a lot more. But that's okay, I'll go get another one. Here we go. Don't spare the compost. If you just think about it, that's what you're going to eat's going to grow in it. Have you noticed what I've done? Seen this? You can do anything. Basically, what we have here is a straightforward little 2-level one. I thought, you know what, I had a piece left over which wasn't enough to do a whole one, so we just made a little bit on the top. That'll just add more interest to it. I'm almost at the stage for planting, and that's when you're really doing something useful. When you're working with nice compost, it should actually smell nice. Is that odd? I'm quite excited. Right, I'm going to plant herbs and salads and various things that we'll be able to harvest and use this summer. First thing I'm putting in is a mint. You should only ever have to buy mint once. It lasts forever and it spreads like a weed. If I was to take this out and plant it in here, 2 years from now there'd just be mint and it'd be a real pain in the neck. A weed is a plant where you don't want it. All right, so we need to have this behave itself, and that's why I've got another pot, a second pot, mint pot, bigger pot. It fits in with lots of room. Mint spreads by putting little tentacles out left and right. We want to stop that. So what we're going to do is we're going to plant it in this box. Taking the bottom out. I don't mind my roots going down. Roots going down's good. The further down they go, the more goodness they find. All very positive. What I do not want is it to go sideways. I'm going to plant it like I would plant an ordinary plant. And here we go. We tend to put herbs near paths, and the reason I do that is because you want access to them. So, and then I'll take this and I'll make a hole roughly the size of my pot. See, there's a hole roughly the size. And to make sure it's the right size, I put my pot in and push it down so the soil level in the pot is the same as the soil level around it. A little bit of that, a little bit of wiggle, look. When I take it out, do you see that hole? That hole's the right side for that plant. Isn't that wonderful? Arthur likes doing this. You take your hand and you put it around the stalk so you don't squish too many, upside down. You can see, slightly pot bound, the roots are coming through. Little squeeze. And a little squeeze and a pull. And there we go. This will now fit in this hole. Bum, 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 bum. And look at that, a little bit of compost around it. Now, we plant mint for more than lamb. Arthur and Dorothy love mint tea. They come and pick it all the time. We use it when we're doing things like Greek salads. It's a really lovely melon and mint and lovely melon and mint salad the kids love. So you can never have too much mint. And that's the first thing planted. I'm sure I should have a cup of tea or something at this stage. What we're going to do is we're going to plant things that we're going to be able to enjoy. If you haven't actually grown much, start with things that taste very different. I'm going to say strawberries, tomatoes, yeah, and salad. Salad's a great thing to grow of your own because it's very different when it's fresh. So strawberries and tomatoes. So I want to get some strawberries and tomatoes in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put the tomatoes at the back so I can pull them up against the wall. Outdoor tomatoes are usually slightly later, but they will still grow because we don't have any problems as soon as the frosts have gone. So tomatoes up here, I'll have some strawberries which will have actually harvested before the tomatoes are ready. So I'll get some of those around here. I dare say, I think the best thing I can do is get Arthur on the go. Right, son. Right, okay. Look, what do you think? Tell me.
Right.
Are you just humouring me, are you?
No, seriously.
If you get this right, you get to a situation where you don't have to do any gardening, you just make the children do it all. Come on, get it, the water in there. Come on, lift it up. Whoa. There's my peas done. Yes, we've got the strawberries as well. So, what have we planted? 7 different things here. All ready to go. Well done. Thanks, mate. Thank you very much. It'll all grow as well.